One day I met this couple who thought I'm a twin, I'm an identical twin, so they thought it was my brother they were meeting until they realized it was me, and they said, "Oh, we've been looking for you. Have you ever heard of a place called Medjugorje?" I had just been ordained at the time. And they said, "We're going there, we're going to drive there, so would you like to come with us?" So I said, "Absolutely." So on one of the evenings, I came down to Mass, and at that stage, the apparitions had changed from the church and were now happening in Slavko's bedroom. And there were hundreds of people there, and all the young people arrived. So Father Slavko came down, he was looking around, and he saw me. And for some reason, he called me and said, "Come up." So I went up into the room, and I was present during the apparition. And the one thing that I remember was that, how come they all dropped suddenly together? Another thing that happened to me was I started crying, and I couldn't stop. I was crying and crying and crying. I felt so foolish, but I couldn't stop crying. So when the apparition was over, I left, and I ran down the fields. There was nothing there, just down the fields, so that nobody could see me. And suddenly I heard a voice saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I looked around, and there was a very old priest coming after me. And I didn't know who he was. He said, "You don't know me, but I was behind you in the apparition, and I saw you crying, and I just wanted to make sure you were okay." And then he said to me, "You know, I'm 83 years old, and this is happening at the end of my life. You are so lucky. It's beginning for you now, at the beginning of your life." I remember coming into the church. Well, I was deciding, will I go to Mass or not? I was so embarrassed. My eyes were all puffy, and I was red, and I was, I was confused as well. So I went over to the sacristy, and I said, "Okay, I'll go in." But the sanctuary was full of priests, and there was one place left. And it was behind the statue of St. James. And I went over. I said, I believe it was kept for me, because I could hide in the corner. And I hadn't a clue what was going on, because I couldn't understand the language. And the place was full of people, local people. And I remember the choir was up beside the altar at that stage. And when communion came, Father Slavko came out onto the altar, and he was looking around, and I didn't know, I didn't pass much remarks to him. Then I saw him standing, and he was looking at me, and he said, "Yes, you, come here." He said, "Tonight you must sing for the Blessed Mother." I said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." So after communion, I sang, and all the local women started crying, and I said, "No wonder they're crying." And that was the first time I sang. And when I had not written anything at all, never before. When I came back to Ireland, then it gave me confidence. I started writing music then. And as I say, the rest is kind of history. Medjugorje has changed in the sense that I think that it gave me the confidence as a musician and as a singer. I came from a family of musicians, but I suppose it made me see that there was a place in the church for a gift as well, and I've continued to use that now. It was funny, even today in Medjugorje, to hear my music sung during the Mass. Not people wouldn't know it was mine, but for me, I knew it was mine, and I'm happy that the gospel can hear that. The group that I'm in now, it was the first time that I've been able to bring a group from my parish. They haven't met any visionaries. I don't think that's important, but I think it's that each person gets to know that, they're part of God's dream and God's plan as well. For the people who come, and the people that I've brought, it's the guides and the other people who have touched them most, because they're so authentic. And they don't have collars, and they don't have veils, and they don't have habits. They're just ordinary people like themselves. And that's the authenticity, I think, of Medjugorje. I don't recognize Medjugorje myself with all the buildings and everything, but the message is still the same. You know, I mean, as I said to him this morning, Medjugorje has changed, but have I changed? Has it made a difference to me? I think there are 4 areas that I would say that it's taught me. It's taught me to be more open to God's presence in lots of different ways. It's taught me to be more tolerant and more compassionate. I remember one day I heard a confession here of a man. He was so broken, and yet he was so brave. It had been 44 years since he'd been to confession. And I was privileged, you know, to be the one. And I just said, like, what would the prodigal father have done? You know, just embrace him and welcome him back. Not point a finger at him and where have you been and all this kind of stuff. I think it's taught me about humility. I'm still learning that, but it is, you know, it's that we're all the same. It doesn't matter in God's eyes how many letters you have after your name, that we're all the same. And the last thing I think it is, well, there's many things, but the last thing I'd say that it's taught me about to be grateful, you know, for the little things and for everything that I have. 3 years ago, my sister passed away, and she was only a young girl. She died suddenly from heart condition. We were broken-hearted, absolutely broken-hearted. She was my only sister. She was only 4 years married, and she was lovely. She'd spent the night before packing bags with my mother for Syrian refugees. And suddenly I got this call in the morning that she had got into difficulties and she was dead. And I couldn't believe it, and you know, it was really, really difficult. So on the day after her funeral, I left the house and I went down to the graveyard where she was buried. And I just cried and cried and cried. And eventually I said to her, because my sister was so good to me, we had a very good relationship. She would call me every night just to see how it was. So I said to her, now listen, you have to help me. You know, I know I'm the priest, but I'm a human being, I'm your brother. I said to her, if you could just send me a little sign that you're okay, that you're going to be okay, and everything is, you know, that things will work out. I'd only just said it. And my phone rang. And it was Ivan, a visionary, who'd never called me before. He just said, I've just heard about your sister and I'm so sorry. He said, remember, you will always be together when you pray. Always be together. There's a line in the gospel where Jesus says to some of the disciples, come and see. And I would say to people, come and see. And come with an open mind. That's all you need. And I hope that in some way that Our Lady, you know, she will do the rest.